Welcome back to another quick country history. Today, we're diving into the story of Togo, a small West African nation with a history that is absolutely packed. We're talking ancient kingdoms, the horrors of the slave trade, colonial division, and the rise of Africa's longest ruling family dynasty. So let's get right to it. The big question we're tackling today is this: how did one single family manage to rule a country for more than 50 years? The answer is a wild ride through migration, colonization, and a series of dramatic power grabs. To really get it, we've got to rewind way back to the beginning. All right, first up, ancient roots and early kingdoms. Long before any European ships appeared on the coast, this land already had a deep and complex history of its own, and it's the foundation for everything that comes later. So you have to picture this. Togo's early history was all about movement. Starting way back in the 11th century, a city called Tondo became a major hub for the Aja peoples. Then, over the next few hundred years, you have groups like the Iwe, Mina, and Gun all moving into the area. And there's this one story that's a really big deal, even today. The Iwe peoples escaped from the kingdom of Notse. The legend says they fled a super harsh king named Agokoli, and it's a foundational story for Iwe identity. And here's the cool part. This isn't just folklore. We have the receipts. Archaeology totally backs this up with some incredible finds. I mean, we're talking about evidence of iron smelting that goes all the way back to the Stone Age. We've got these intricate terracotta figurines, stone enclosures. This stuff proves that really complex, advanced societies were thriving here for centuries. Okay, now the story takes a really dark and dramatic turn. We're moving into the era of European arrival, a moment that would change everything, bringing immense tragedy and literally drawing new lines on the map that split communities apart. The Portuguese were the first to show up, but for the next 200 years, this entire coastal region became a massive center for the transatlantic slave trade. It was so central to this horrific business that it earned a truly grim nickname, the Slave Coast. Now fast forward to the late 1800s, and the scramble for Africa is in full swing. Germany comes in and establishes the protectorate of Togoland, but their control was actually pretty short-lived. World War I breaks out, and boom, British and French forces invade. After the war, they literally sliced the territory in two, creating British Togoland and French Togoland. And that single decision had huge consequences, with the British part eventually voting to merge with the new nation of Ghana in 1957. You know, it's an interesting side note that during their brief rule, the Germans invested heavily in building stuff. They built railways and a deep-water port, making Togoland their only colony that could actually pay for itself. They even called it their model possession. Of course, that development also concentrated power and resources in very specific places, a pattern that would cause problems for a long time to come. So that split really sets the stage for the modern nation. With British Togoland now part of Ghana, French Togoland was on its own path to independence. And as you're about to see, that path was going to be incredibly rocky. And there it is, April 27th, 1960. The Togolese Republic is born. Sylvanus Olympio, a key figure in the independence movement, becomes the first president. You can just imagine the optimism, the hope for a democratic and prosperous future. But that dream of democracy began to fade, and it faded fast. Citing supposed plots against him, President Olympio moved to consolidate his power. By 1962, get this, just 2 years after independence, he had dissolved all opposition parties. Just like that, Togo was a one-party state, and a very dangerous precedent had been set. Now, as you can imagine, making your country a one-party state creates a lot of resentment, especially within the military. And that resentment was about to boil over, kicking off an era of instability that would define Togo for decades. Welcome to the Age of Coups. January 13th, 1963, Togo has its first coup. A group of disgruntled soldiers overthrow the government, and in the process, President Sylvanus Olympio is assassinated. It was a shocking, brutal end to the nation's democratic experiment, and it sent a clear message. The army was now the real power in town. The civilian government that came after was weak and unstable. So just 4 years later, and get this, on the exact anniversary of the first coup, the military stepped in again. This time, it was a bloodless takeover led by a lieutenant colonel named Gnassingbé Eyadema. Remember that name. He took the presidency, and Togo's political landscape was changed forever. 38 years. That's not a typo. For nearly 4 decades, Gnassingbé Eyadema ruled Togo. He banned political parties, survived multiple attempts to overthrow him, and held on to power with an iron grip, becoming one of Africa's longest-serving rulers. So what happens when a leader like that finally dies? Well, Eyadema's death in 2005 didn't end his family's rule. In fact, it marked the beginning of something almost unheard of in modern politics, a full-blown dynasty. When Eyadema died, the military didn't even bother with the constitution. They just immediately installed his son, Faure Gnassingbé, as the new president. The international community called it a coup, and the pressure was so great that Faure had to briefly step down, only to run in a snap election, which he won amid widespread accusations of fraud. And Faure Gnassingbé has been in power ever since. He's won multiple elections, each one dogged by claims of cheating. He's faced huge challenges, like massive anti-government protests back in 2017 demanding term limits, but he was re-elected again in 2020. Put it all together, and the Gnassingbé family has been running Togo uninterrupted since 1967. Now, this brings us right up to the present day, and a dramatic new twist. In 2024, the government pushed through a new constitution that completely changes the rules of the game. Let's break it down. Togo just switched from a presidential system, where the president is the boss, to a parliamentary one. Now, the president's role is mostly ceremonial. The real power lies with a brand new position, the president of the Council of Ministers. Think of it as a prime minister on steroids. And here's the kicker. The old presidential job had term limits. This new all-powerful role, it has a 6-year term that can be renewed indefinitely. And that leads us right back to our central question. On paper, Togo has a brand new system of government, but critics argue it's just a clever way to allow the same leadership to stay in power forever, just under a different title. So what does the future hold for a nation that has known only one family's rule for over half a century? And that's the quick history of Togo. We hope you found this explainer useful. If you did, be sure to check out the other videos in our Quick Country Histories playlist. And hey, subscribe to Notebook Summaries for more deep dives. Thanks for watching.